Howdy, howdy, Suitable here, and welcome to my follow-up Essential Units video on the Lizardmen. Now, I had said I wanted to do a follow-up video based on the Tomb King's update and all the changes they made to the units, particularly these three units, the Longbeards. They reduced the charge bonus and reduced their hit points from 6,600 to 6,450. And with the Warriors of Dragonfire pass, I believe they just reduced their melee attack. And they had a massive increase to the Ironbreakers, plus 2 AP. And all of them got mass increases, but the Ironbreakers got even more. And they got extra hit points. I think they went from 7,050 to 7,200. So I wanted to go and revisit some testing against the Lizardmen with this Saurus Warriors just as my baseline. But I will get the Saurus Warriors with shields at the end of the video to show a couple of test battles to really see what the difference looks like. So we're just going to flip over to a spreadsheet. If it's not for you and you just want to watch the end battles, go ahead and skip ahead. But we're going to look at the technical details, the actual analysis right now. Alright, so what we have here is I wanted to test two things. Kind of kill two birds with one stone. So I wanted to look at the Longbeards with 4 chevrons, because the chevrons got more expensive and they increased melee defense stats, not a little less than they did before. So this was the old test before the Team Kings dropped. The Longbeards beat the Saurus Warriors pretty handily, all wins. And they averaged about 159 gold. You know, if you want to see the last video, how I derived that number and what it means. And they were getting about 37 gold per minute. Now, with the reduction, so they increased the cost of the chevrons, so they went from 757 to 768, and they have one less melee defense in that stat. Plus, they have -2 charge bonus, I think it was. I'm not precisely sure. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But what a difference. So their hit points are only 97.7% of what they were. So they're only about a 2.5% drop, but their finished hit points was a lot less. They didn't lose any of the fights, so they're pretty reliable still against the Saurus Warriors, but they're going to be less reliable against the Saurus Warriors with shields, but they pulled a lot less gold. Now, 69 versus 158, so basically 44%, basically a 65%, or sorry, a 55% reduction in the amount of differential in gold, and a 55% reduction in the gold per minute that the Longbeards were getting over top of the Saurus Warriors. Now, I think this is a nice little rebalance tweak because the Longbeards were just straight up better than the Saurus Warriors, and the Saurus Warriors with shields, they're an extremely good unit, and now they're still good. I mean, this is not bad. They're pulling their weight, so to speak. And one of the things I will notice is my 5 test didn't go off quite perfectly because I did have a reduction in total damage per second, DPS, and the Saurus Warriors did a little more DPS, so that this isn't quite right. I would imagine it's more like, instead of a 55% drop, maybe a 40% drop, but it's still very significant. It's like small changes here to hit points and charge bonus, and a small change to the cost and a 1 stat reduction starts to equal a big difference in the total gold differential, but they're still pulling their weight. So they're still a solid unit. So there's no doubt about that. So we're going to flip up to the Dragonfire Pass, the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Now, they were very, very good. They only cost 700 versus 750. They're winning them all, pulling 168 gold out of that, 51 gold per minute. The small change, the reduction in melee attack, has made a massive difference. Now they're instead of pulling 168 gold out of that encounter, it's only 93. Instead of 52 per minute, it's only 28. Massive difference, especially the amount of hit points they have left, and they lost one of those fights where they were winning them all pretty reliably. they can now definitely lose that encounter, which makes sense. And the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass were amazing. Now they're still solid. There's no doubt about that. Are they essential units? Well, I still think they're really good, but let's go take a look at the Ironbreaker stats, because this is a beauty. So here's the old Ironbreakers. Up here, they win every time. They do very good, but it takes a long time to win. 255 seconds. They're only pulling 233 gold and only 55 gold per minute. With the changes to the increased AP damage and HP, they increased that from 233 gold to 306 gold, so a 31% increase. But here's the big one. This is like small changes here to the stats equal big changes to how they're going to perform on the field. A 46% increase in the gold per minute they're pulling. And you look at the hit points they're ending up, they only gained 2% on their hit points to start with, but they gained 11% on the backside. Their DPS went from 24 to 27, so a 12% increase from that AP. They're taking the same amount of DPS from the Saurus Warriors, which makes sense. But these Ironbreakers are unbelievable now. They're, it's funny. I just did some testing on the mass increase and how Ironbreakers stand up. Like, Ironbreakers are exactly what I imagined them to be when I first imagined the Ironbreakers in Total War Warhammer. They are in a very good spot. And I'm going to show a battle with them to kind of show the differential. They're really, really strong right now. And it's like, aside from their ability to actually kill something, which they never had before, it'd take, 255 seconds. That's over 4 minutes. Now it's 227. That 11% difference may not seem like a lot, but it really is. Because you can use them for other things. But the big thing against particularly the Lizardmen is their big dinosaurs are going to have a hard time running through the Ironbreakers, because it's like a tar pit now, where they would, Krokar could just run wherever he pleased. They feral Carnosaurs and Stegodons, they could just run around however they wanted to. Now they're going with any Ironbreakers in that front line, they are going to get stuck. They're not going to be able to run around nearly as easily. So let's go and take a look and see what this looks like in an actual fight. Alrighty, so what we're going to do is we're going to do two fights. We'll do one where that's kind of in line with the units we identified in the last essential units. So, just a front line with the Grumbling Guard, who are still very, very good. The Longbeards, we'll keep the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and have some Hammerers in there. And we'll go up against 5 Saurus Warriors with shields. And, I'm not going to run this 5 times. I just want to demonstrate this so that we can see when we put the Ironbreakers in there what that looks like in terms of how long the battle takes and what kind of conditions your units are in at the end. So let's just put these guys here, make something like this, keep it fairly simple. We got these guys. So basically I want my Warriors of Dragonfire Pass beside the Grumbling Guard, because they're going to need that bonus, and we will lock them up, start the battle, and we'll try and just wrap the line up with the Hammers and the Longbeards and wrap it up around this way. So this might not go perfectly, but it does not matter. Okay, let's get you here. Okay. Let's get you over here. Okay. I don't think my buff is getting all the way over there. Maybe. Are these guys? Oh, they're fresh. Okay. So these guys are holding barely, but And that's what they're meant to do. They're just meant to hold while these guys finish off over here. I can actually bring these guys over here. Let these guys go here. Get them in here. And we'll just look at how long the battle takes. All right. So 55 seconds about, or 55, 10, somewhere in there. So we're pretty solid. We're still going to win that. I mean, this is a good mix of units for that fight. And we ended at around just above 55 minutes left. So we'll end that battle. All right. And I know we spent a little bit more, but they averaged around 25 kills-ish. Yeah, we had 120 losses. They took to their 258. So basically, we took half of their losses, a little less than half, and we ended up at 55 minutes. Now, if I take these 4 units, we'll get our Grumbling Guard still in this, and we'll put in some Iron Breakers, just 3 units of Iron Breakers. Now, they're more expensive for sure, because these guys, like, they're basically this lineup of 3 Iron Breakers and a Grumbling Guard, which I think you still absolutely need the Grumbling Guard. They are the essential unit to keep your units fresh. It's going to cost 600 more gold in their front line, but they're going to perform very, very well. So we'll go in there and get that fight going so we can see how they're going to do. And you'll use your Grumbling Guard a little bit different in this scenario. I'm going to grab my Iron Breakers, and I'm just going to string them out as wide as I can. And group. We'll start that battle. Get that going. I want these guys here. Okay, so we'll get our Iron Breakers. I want you here. You here. You there. But you can see they're definitely going to still win this very handily. These guys fresh. These guys are fresh. Their buff is just reaching. Perfect. It is really hard to hit two units with your buff from the Grumbling Guard, but it can be done, obviously. And these guys are holding this off all by themselves, no problem. Get you here. Get the Grumbling Guard over here. There we go. So 54, I took about an extra 30 seconds, but again, we have a very good line left, and they're all in good shape. And for the rest of the battle, when you're going to go and fight what the big monstrous units left, if they engage the Iron Breakers, they're going to be like they're walking through molasses. So we'll end that battle. Let's just take a look at the stats at the end. So we only took 50 losses as opposed to 120. Very, very big difference. All our units are extremely healthy. I mean, they got 90 kills, 65, 46. Our Grumbling Guard's healthy. And these units are going to transition from really the infantry engagement to the late game of the battle extremely well. And it only took, even though they only had, we didn't have the hammers in there, it only took an extra 30 seconds for that engagement to resolve, about there. But you lost in there 70 fewer units, and the units that you have left are generally going to perform better against the big dinosaurs, because Kroq-Gar comes in here, he's going to be tied up. So fantastic, I think, changes by CA. I love the Iron Breakers. I love the changes. They feel like they should. They feel excellent. And something that's really interesting is that the two battles we showed there, depending on your play style, you could play with something against the Lizardmen. You could play with a front line that's a little bit more damage oriented, or you could play with the Iron Breakers, and they're still going to do a lot of damage, tie up things in the front, and look at a different sort of backline. So it actually genuinely gives you options, and your really expensive units are going to act like expensive units. Yes, they're more vulnerable to magic or maybe artillery or these types of things, but just unbelievable. I mean, I really like where the Iron Breakers are right now. I can't say that enough. They feel like they should. They feel amazing just to play them, and I'm sure if you've played them at all in multiplayer, you'll have felt the same. I had a great comment on someone who's played a lot of multiplayer and is just completely converted to loving the Iron Breakers because they are absolute beasts, and they're really fantastic. They're where they should be, and I love them. And clearly there's options. Like this front line is a little more expensive than the other front line, so it's not quite as wide, but it is very capable, and when that melee engagement is done, either front line will do. They're both good. I would say the Grumbling Guard is definitely an essential unit. Iron Breaker's got to be up there. If it isn't, I think they're now an essential unit to have at least one, maybe two. We'll see. I might play with some different configurations, but the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass are not a throwaways. They're still good. They're only 700 gold, and they can still hold their own. And if you do have them near your Grumbling Guard, they will be able to take that fight with a basic Saurus Warrior. They're I think a decent unit to put in there. And again, if you want to go really beefy or really do a lot of damage, toss a hammer in there instead of an Iron Breaker. Or if you want to be fairly cheap and wide in your front line, your Longbeards are still very solid. Chevron them up to rank 4. You could get away with chevroning. You can either go rank 1. I think rank 1 or rank 4 are the spots to stop. Rank 1 is still a very good chevron spot because it's a little more expensive, but you don't lose that single chevron because you lose it, I think, at rank 2 or maybe rank 3. So one rank up on your Longbeards are still going to be very good, very cheap, nice wide line, and I would definitely put that chevron in them. And you have two really good options against the Lizardmen, and I think the Iron Breakers may be the better option because they are just going to muck up all of the Lizardmen's big units in a very real way. If you go and look at the combat analysis video I did with the mass, just trying to run a Dragon Ogre through the Iron Breakers, it's like running through cold molasses. So anyways, very interesting. I mean, I think CA has done a fantastic job on the rebalance. I will not deny that the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass were objectively overpowered for their cost. They are still powerful, they are still very good, and they're still a good pick. The Longbeards were very, very good, and they're still very, very good. They're going to be a core unit. Now, the Longbeards with great weapons. Against the Lizardmen, you can't bring them. They're awful. But in other matchups, they are still extremely good. So I think the Dwarf Infantry feels like it's in a really, really good spot right now. You know, Slayers, their base Slayer used to be 1100 when the game first came out. Now they're more capable and cheaper, and you know, the Miners with blasting charges are in a good spot. And maybe, just maybe, these Miners, now that they have more mass, may be slightly more useful in some situations. I don't know. But your Dwarf Warriors with the extra mass, protecting the edges against cavalry, they're going to do a much better job because they're not going to be tossed around quite as much. So I'm really looking forward to doing some more testing on the Dowie, particularly now that you know, these Bugman's Rangers are in a really cool spot. They had a big buff to allow them to be much better skirmishers, and with their additional mass and their charged defense against large, they're going to be an interesting option. Iron Drakes, only 700 gold. They are right in the mix. They're going to be fantastic against a number of builds, I think, particularly anything that's weak to fire, but an undead ethereal units, I think they're going to do quite good against. Trollhammer torpedoes are only 900. You know, gyrocopters now do flame fire damage. Grudge throwers are more accurate. Flame cannons now have better range. You know, Oregon's guns got a nerf, but they were maybe a little bit out of hand. I don't know. But I'm definitely going to continue on my Essential Units series to try and put together a suggested package. So I'm going to be looking at the backline next and trying to understand really what are the best backline units to have in terms of artillery, you know, basically everything that's not infantry. And I'm also going to look at the lords and heroes. So basically 2 more full videos, and then I'll make a final video of maybe some suggested builds or concepts. So I hope you found that interesting, and I would love to hear any comments, especially any more that from people that have played with these Ironbreakers in multiplayer. I've got one comment already, and I think that was definitely a comment saying the Ironbreakers are in a good spot. But really, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will do my best to get back onto this computer as much as I can to really do the analysis and share it. So that said, I will see you soon.